Okay, so as we continue our series of excellent talks, I'd like to encourage you to continue submitting any questions in the chat, and we will be sure to pose those for our experts. The sun is up here in Western United States, and I'm feeling the increase in energy. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Bernd Stowasser, who completed a postdoctoral fellowship at Caltech with degrees in chemistry and engineering. Has had numerous leadership roles, including head of clinical operations with Aventis, and being a core member of the European Federation of Pharmaceutical Industries and Associations, Research and Innovation Strategy Working Group, and being the global head for public-private partnerships with Sanofi. We're delighted that you are here and look forward to your talk.
Yeah, many thanks, Professor Munoz, for your very nice introduction. And I will try to share my screen. So that should be there. Okay, so in case there is any issue, in case the slide do not move according to my talk, please let me know. So my talk is more focused really on, I would say, managerial and aspects to get different stakeholders together rather on I would say, detailed science. And as it was said in the introduction, one of my roles in the company is to oversee the public-private partnerships. And in this circle, I know there are many people who are very active in the field. So I was explicitly asked by one of my alliance managers, Bernd, who recently retired, to say hello to Paul Franks, also to I think we have Ewan Pearson in this group and many others. So, and many thanks also to John Nolan for inviting me to this exciting meeting. So overall, we are interested to make sure that we can break barriers between different groups. And so most would think that I refer to industry and academia. It's not the case, because that is a very established relation which goes over many years, successfully increasing year by year. Actually, the big challenge at the beginning was to break the barriers between industry itself. Companies were not really used to share data and to cooperate in areas where they thought it is a high competition. And it was a huge process of building trust and education to build the relation between industry stakeholders, actually to align and do things together in the interest ultimately of the patient. So actually I have to just keep time under control here. I was one of the first to really build the strategic governing group Diabetes jointly with colleagues from Novo Nordisk, from Eli Lilly and other companies. So in that we said we have to involve stakeholders, we have to pool, standardize, combine data, we have to develop protocols, methodologies together, and we share resources and risks. And so this was the beginning, and this goes back to the year 2000, roughly 2008 to 2010. Can't believe I'm doing this for so long. So as an example, the biggest public-private partnership globally in health is IMI, which is IMI, it's Innovative Medicines Health Initiative. And it's IMI 1, it's IMI 2, and I will say a few words at the end on the next generation of public-private partnerships. So overall, it's a huge investment by the pharma companies and by the taxpayers in Europe. Overall, it's over 5 billion euro. And the interesting thing is that academics receive fund, so cash, and industry is not receiving anything. They put the same amount which is paid to the academic and public partners, is putting into the projects as in-kind resources. Means that really the scientists are working together. It's bench scientists, it's physicians who are designing protocols and so on. So it's a real collaboration, which is also reflected within the governance structure of the projects, where you have joint leadership between an academic and or a public partner and an industry partner. So overall, the objective is to improve health by speeding up the development. And this is not related to projects which are directly in the pipeline. It may be in some areas like infectious diseases where there is a high medical or societal need. That is the case, but not in areas as diabetes, because that is a competitive field where obviously companies take revenues. And so that is not in the scope. But certainly, and this is shown on the next slide, it is the things which make the pipeline development quicker. So as it was said by my speaker here, who clearly mentioned digital biomarkers and biomarkers. This is absolutely critical to stratify and to get better information on assigning drugs to certain treatments and so on. We need much better patient stratification. Also biomarkers here are essential. Also health outcomes definition. So what does it really mean as value for patients when we get results out of a development and when we design phase 3 protocols? And at the end, it has to show an outcome in real life. And that is something where the industry and also the entire world which is developing drugs should have a shared idea upon. So there are much other things, drug safety, taxonomy, disease understanding, and all that is something which is often forgotten when you just develop a product from early development to phase 1, phase 2, and ultimately to phase 3. And it's important to really support those developments with sustained science. And that is something where you can easily move into the pre-competitive or even non-competitive field. And you can achieve that really partners who are usually competitors are sitting on the same table. And this for me is one of the biggest achievements in this public-private partnerships, to get people together at one table. So overall drivers to build the diabetes pipeline in the public-private partnership field, and more specifically here really in the IMI, which is a bit more the focus we have today, is that we want to have an understanding of the mechanisms which underlie the different two diabetes types and the comorbidities. So we want to have also a good understanding of diagnostics and so what is happening to different disease population. We had a very interesting talk about this earlier. And ultimately, we need clinical trial designs which are more efficient as of today or in the past. And so we can discuss adaptive trials and also identifying new clinical endpoints. And here, for example, digital biomarkers can play a major role in this in the future. So there's also clearly, and also an example today, that we had actually patients here, and this is very important, that we have to engage patient communities and listen to them, put them in steering roles of different bodies. And in overall, make sure that we have an improved cohesion within the diabetes community. And I have to say, as I lived this from, I would say, 2008 till last year and until today, the collaboration and the willingness to join forces and the creativity in the diabetes community, and many people I know who are in the circle, I know personally, this is really unique in my experience. We are doing similar things now in the immunology field, and we start more from scratch, but in diabetes, this is an incredibly active community. And so I will come to more names later when we come to the projects. So it's moving. So we have a huge portfolio in IMI diabetes, and this started in 2008 with Imedia, and it will go beyond 2025 just in IMI 2, and beyond that, and I will come to this, we will have the opportunity in a new public-private partnership to come up with further projects. So this is a strategic portfolio which was designed in a strategic governing group of many participants, mainly of industry, because this is the IMI process. It was to say, okay, what are the needs to develop, have better development in industry? Academics came with innovative solutions. Then joint projects have been defined as of both views are, of course, of similar or equal importance. And then the projects have been implemented. But the idea was at the beginning to have a strategic approach to cover the different needs in the field where we need to work together, where one single contributor cannot do on its own. I remember very well when we started with the Imedia project. Bernard Torrent was the key investigator at the beginning. And we had long discussions about IP and who is doing what and who is first, who is the things which you develop when you start with such an endeavor. So after 3 years, the situation was different. When I come to one of the consortium meetings, I can tell you, I don't know if I'm academic or industry or biotech or regulator. It's really, you have a team of people who integrate themselves. And when I send from my department an alliance manager, he's an alliance manager really for the consortium, treating equally the different stakeholders. And so you lose the borders between the different, I would say, previous silos. This is an incredible achievement. And so today, if I go to Genève, Bernard Torrent offers me his office for meetings, and I have a look on the Lake Genève. And you know, this is something which you experience only in this kind, or very nicely in this kind of a cross-functional environment. So the key people here, Bernard Torrent was a leader of Imedia and in Summit Life Group. I think you know all the names very well. Ewan Pearson, who I think is here today on the direct consortium. BTKD, also from Lund, Maria Gomez. HypoResolve is led by Bastien de Galan. And Sophia, which is an obesity project, is led out of Dublin by Carol Leroux. And so I forgot Litmus. Yeah, it's Quentin Anstey from Newcastle. And Rhapsody is also Bernard Torrent from Lausanne. I think I have all of them. So all the names are probably very familiar to you. And so this is all an incredible effort. So this gives you a perspective of the overall timelines and the budget. And if you look at it, it's almost €1/3 billion invested in this collaborative diabetes pipeline. And so some projects have ended and others have almost just begun. And we will be busy with this until 2025. But as I mentioned, there might be another wave under a different, slightly different umbrella, which can contribute to this development. So just as an example that you have not only individual projects, which is important because you need to deliver really the output of individual projects, but clearly you have to do something with it. And so sustainability is very important. So I mentioned already the projects in media, there's and direct, there's also Summit, which was the first wave of the project starting around 2008 till 2010. And so you have different focus and you get different results. Ultimately now, as a second wave project, Rhapsody is putting the initial outputs to large extent under one umbrella, and you get significant outcomes with the federated database, an incredible collection and access to omics data, and you have stratification models. You have the biggest European human beta cell collection, and you have quite a few biomarker candidates, which shows the progression of type 2. Let me highlight the human beta cell collection, because this was the initial interest why industry engaged, at least from a couple of companies, in this early project in media. Because when we wanted to test compounds, the results from the different beta cell strains came out completely different. And so the interest was really to get a beta cell line, which is highly reliable and reproducible. And this was one of the major outcomes of the IMIDIA project. And we still take benefit of this today. So, okay, now it's moving. So as many of you know, Sanofi actually is focusing now in the diabetes field under the immunology umbrella on type 1 diabetes. And I would like to give a short overview on the INODIA project, which is led by Chantal Mathieu, one of the key leaders in the diabetes field. And it is co-led from industry by actually Sanofi. So this is a very busy slide. I will not obviously go through the details. So you can see that it's a couple of companies. It's also JDRF and Helmsley who are involved, and you have significant universities from Great Britain, from other parts of Europe, and it is an incredible strong consortium with key players in the field. So the ultimate goal is to have actually I would say it in very simple words, to get a much better view on the type 1 diabetes disease, looking from mode of action, from this onset of diabetes, and so to see what happens, what are really the mechanistic aspects when type 1 diabetes starts, how is the immune system reacting, how can you interfere, and those very basic questions. And the key deliverables are an infrastructure to generate. Actually, there are great infrastructures, of course, and it's important to have, I would say, interaction between US and EU, and not to just defend an area or one project. So key deliverable is really, it says here EU infrastructure, but in reality, it's really a global integrated infrastructure with other players as well for the recruitment of patients who are new or early on type 1 diabetes. And so clearly the pathogenesis of type 1 diabetes is very important, but get better information. Also clinical trial designs need to be developed. And ultimately, you need patients who are willing to go there. And we have seen today that you have children, you have parents, and it's not only to say, okay, we put an ad in somewhere and people will come. You really have to build trust with the patients through the clinics who are in the network, and can really get patients into trials based on a resource and a cohort and trust with them. So currently in Inodia, you can say it's also a clinical test bed. There are 4 trials ongoing. I will not go into the details now due to time, so I will finish in the next 2 or 3 minutes. But there are different compounds tested in the early onset of diabetes. And so we have, for example, an globulin, so it's anti-thymocyte globulin, ATG, and also you have a monoclonal antibody, which is currently under testing. But again, that would be just a scientific speech on its own. So now at the end, just a short view on the new public-private partnership, which will start actually next year. And the preparation work, as you can imagine, is heavily ongoing. It will be called IHI, Innovative Health Initiative. The huge difference to the IMI is that it is cross-sectorial. So we will have not only the pharma there, we will also have the medtech industry there. And so it's COSIR, MedTech, Vaccines Europe, Eurobio, and of course the pharmaceutical companies. And so initially you need to bring all those different sectors on one table. And again, this is not a given. It is very difficult. You have to integrate the different interests, and you have to produce huge paperwork on everything. So I'm a member of the core group of the FPI here. And so I spend at least 1 or 2 hours every day on this, but it will at the end deliver a great program, and it will be coming to you very soon. And so the focus areas are genetics, biology and technology, big data, integrated care, patients engagement, and also to talk about what is value in the pharma sector. And so there are a couple of outputs. I will not go through each of them, but I think the slide set will be distributed anyway. But clearly, if you look through, there will be a lot room also for diabetes. And I can tell you that Anke Schulte in my team, who is very involved in those programs, is currently heavily defending that at least at the beginning, a type 1 diabetes program will be there. And it will depend on you and lobbying to extend this broadly into type 2 or anything you think it's important. So in summary, on the right side, why are we doing public-private partnerships? It's involving stakeholders. As I said, this is not a given. You have to do active work, and you have to actively manage those consortia. And then it's an excellent vehicle. It has proven so far that it generates and makes available data samples and cohorts. For me, one of the major values, which is tangible and where you can justify with your management that it's not for fun, it's really tangible. And also the clinical networks, which is really a great thing. And it brings in academic networks into industrial networks, and ultimately it's a huge value. So, and as I mentioned, the upcoming Innovative Health Initiative will be a great resource to continue with this, especially in areas, and again, this was mentioned today, biomarkers, imaging biomarkers, digital tools, and so on. On the left side, in fact, when I explain people what is precision medicine, I give the example of my hobby. Actually, my hobby here is to listen to turntable, to records. And so, yes, you can listen to records. It's easy. You just take a turntable and it will play music. But if you really want to hear the detail, you have to spend a lot of effort with precision tools to really align that you get really everything to the point. That is usually an explanation which helps quite well to explain what is precision medicine to people. So I thank you a lot. I think I'm within my time, which was assigned to me. And if there are questions and time, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stowasser. And we will be posing our questions at the end during our plenary discussion. This is very important information. And so thank you so much for your time and for the information. Your call for taking active steps to promote the cohesion of the diabetes community is a perfect segue to our next speaker's topic. So we will circle back around to discussing your collaborations more after we are done.